June 27, 1995. A rising star in Iowa's local news scene simply vanished. Jodi Huisentruit was just 27, a vibrant morning show anchor. She was supposed to be on air by 6 a.m., but when her producer called her at 4:30, she picked up, said she overslept, and would be there shortly. She never arrived. By 7 o'clock, her co-workers were worried. By 8 o'clock, police were standing outside her apartment. What they found wasn't a crime scene. It was a struggle. Her red Mazda was in the lot, keys on the ground, a bent car key, drag marks, one high heel, her hairdryer, a bottle of hairspray, and no sign of Jodi. Nearly 30 years later, no body, no arrest, and just recently, a new person of interest. Was Jodi stalked? Taken by someone she knew? Or caught in something darker than anyone expected? This is the chilling story of the news anchor who became the headline. Before she was a missing person, she was just Jodi. Born in Long Prairie, Minnesota, Jodi Huisentruit was the kind of person who filled every room with energy. A high school athlete, a pageant queen, always smiling, and ridiculously organized. She had big dreams. After college, she landed a job as a TV news anchor in Mason City, Iowa, population just under 30,000. It wasn't glamorous, but she made it her own. She'd jog along the Winnebago River in the morning and hit the newsroom by 3 a.m. Her co-anchors described her as upbeat, bubbly, and meticulously prepared. But behind the cheery exterior, there were whispers. Friends said Jodi had begun to feel uneasy, like someone was watching her. A colleague said she'd gotten a weird call, a man asking about her schedule. Still, Jodi brushed it off. It was probably nothing, right? Because when you live in a town like Mason City, you don't expect evil to show up before sunrise. Monday, June 26, 1995. It was an ordinary summer night. Jodi had played in a charity golf tournament that evening. Afterward, she had dinner and drinks with some colleagues. She seemed relaxed, happy. She even left a voicemail for a friend, chatting about how fun the day had been. But somewhere between that voicemail and the next morning, something went wrong. At 4:30 a.m., KIMT TV producer Amy Kunz called Jodi to check in. Jodi had overslept, unusual for her, but she sounded alert, said she was getting ready and would be there in a few minutes. That was the last time anyone heard her voice. By 7 a.m., the station had to improvise without its anchor. By 8 a.m., police arrived at Jodi's apartment complex. Her red Mazda Miata was still there, but the driver's seat was adjusted for someone much taller. On the ground, her heels, her car key, bent, and her hairspray and blow dryer scattered in the lot. It looked like someone waited for her, someone who wasn't expecting her to fight back. The parking lot outside Jodi's apartment was quiet, too quiet. No signs of a break-in, no calls for help, no known witnesses. But on the pavement, the story told itself. Near her car, officers found Jodi's belongings scattered, not dropped, thrown. Her high heels, her hairdryer, her purse. One key lay bent beside the driver's door as if it had been twisted in a desperate moment. There were drag marks leading from her car toward a nearby patch of grass. A palm print was lifted off her Miata, but it wasn't in any database. The scene suggested Jodi had been ambushed while unlocking her door. She likely fought back, hard. Neighbors would later report hearing screams, but brushed them off. There were no security cameras, no clear eyewitnesses, no signs of forced entry inside her apartment. And just like that, she was gone, vanished in minutes. Mason City Police called in the FBI. Volunteers searched fields, riverbanks, and woodlands. But from the moment she disappeared, investigators were racing against something invisible, something that always stayed one step ahead. There was no forced entry, no murder weapon, no surveillance footage. But someone had been watching. Multiple neighbors would later come forward. One recalled a white van lurking in the lot days before her disappearance. Another swore they'd seen a tall man near Jodi's apartment in the early mornings, just standing there watching. Then came the mysterious calls. A friend of Jodi's said she'd been receiving strange, anonymous phone calls at work. Another noted she once told them she might start carrying mace. Still, no name, no face, just fragments of a predator. Police questioned co-workers, ex-boyfriends, even a former high school acquaintance who had become oddly fixated on Jodi and allegedly followed her around town. His name was never officially released, but he was never ruled out. Years later, a friend would reveal that Jodi had recently been creeped out by someone. She called him weird, said he wouldn't leave her alone. But without hard evidence, everything was circumstantial. It was like chasing a ghost. And behind the scenes, the clock was ticking. Because in missing person cases, the first 72 hours are everything. FBI profilers were brought in to analyze the scene and build a psychological sketch of Jodi's possible abductor. This wasn't random. The crime was too clean, too fast, too quiet. According to criminal psychologists, whoever took Jodi likely fell into one of two categories: organized, socially competent, stalker type, someone who had studied her, knew her patterns, and had rehearsed the abduction in their mind. Or a delusional, intimacy-seeking offender, someone who believed they had a relationship with Jodi, even if she didn't know it. Investigators noted how meticulous the offender was. No fingerprints, no fibers, no DNA, no mess. This suggested control, not impulse. But the most telling clue was in the timeline. Jodi was abducted within minutes of ending that early morning phone call. The abductor was likely waiting, watching, maybe even listening. It's possible he followed her after the golf event. Some experts even speculated the attacker could have been someone from her professional circle, someone who knew her exact routine. But in the absence of confessions, surveillance, or digital footprints, this profile remained just that: a ghost, sketched in theories. Within hours, the entire community mobilized. Hundreds of volunteers, farmers, teachers, co-workers joined the search. They walked ditches, dragged the Winnebago River, and searched every barn and abandoned shed in Cerro Gordo County. Cadaver dogs, helicopters, sonar, nothing. People wanted to believe she'd just run away, that maybe she snapped from pressure. But her family knew better. Her co-anchors knew better. Jodi was dependable, relentlessly so. She wouldn't just disappear, not before a broadcast, not without her contact lenses, purse, or car. One by one, the leads dried up. A man in prison claimed to know what happened. Turned out to be a hoax. Another tip about a buried body led nowhere. And in 1998, 3 years later, a witness came forward claiming she saw a woman bound and gagged in the trunk of a black Ford Mustang, days after the disappearance. It was the kind of sighting that might have cracked the case, had it not been dismissed at the time. Even now, many believe that the biggest failure wasn't the lack of clues, but the ones they never took seriously. For nearly 3 decades, Jodi Huisentruit's case grew colder with every passing year, until something changed. In 2023, a docuseries called Finding Jodi sparked renewed national attention. Former law enforcement and independent journalists dug deep into police files and surfaced a name long kept out of headlines: Tony Jackson. A convicted serial rapist who lived just 2 blocks from Jodi at the time of her disappearance. He matched the FBI's profile: calculated, violent, intelligent. In a taped jailhouse conversation, Jackson allegedly made chilling comments, suggesting knowledge of the case. But here's the twist: he was never charged. Witnesses who came forward were dismissed or deemed unreliable in the 90s. One woman said she heard Jackson boast about taking a woman from Mason City. Another claimed to have overheard details too specific to be coincidence. Now, nearly 30 years later, investigators say they're re-evaluating those statements. Still, no arrest, no indictment. But after years of silence, the case is no longer frozen. And for the first time in decades, Jodi's name is being spoken with urgency again. 3 decades, hundreds of interviews, dozens of theories, and still, not one person has ever been arrested for the disappearance of Jodi Huisentruit. Why? Some say Mason City PD mishandled critical early hours of the case. Evidence wasn't properly preserved. Potential suspects weren't thoroughly vetted. Others point to the lack of physical evidence. No body, no weapon, no blood, which makes prosecution almost impossible. Even with circumstantial leads like Tony Jackson's alleged confessions, legal experts caution that it wouldn't stand up in court. A defense attorney could shred the case. Jodi's family and friends have pushed for a grand jury or even charges based on public interest, but prosecutors remain silent. In a 2022 interview, a former federal agent said, "The problem isn't knowing who, it's proving how, and getting 12 jurors to agree beyond a reasonable doubt." So the case sits in legal limbo. Not cold, not closed, but still unsolved. Jodi's desk at KIMT-TV has long been filled. The station changed logos. The town moved on. But for those who knew her, justice is the only headline that matters. 30 years later, the legal theories swirl like fog over Mason City. Was Jodi abducted by a serial predator? Or someone close to her? Was it a random crime of opportunity? Or something planned, rehearsed, and covered up? Some armchair detectives believe Jodi knew her abductor, someone with charm, trust, or power. Others suggest the possibility of a stalker with law enforcement ties, a theory that has quietly circulated but never proven. And then, there's the possibility we may never know. In 2024, an anonymous tip claimed her body was buried near a farm just outside town. The area was searched. Still, nothing. Jodi's case remains officially open and technically active, but with no new charges, no upcoming court dates, and no resolution. She was supposed to tell the news. Instead, she became it. And today, all that's left is silence before sunrise. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jodi Huisentruit, no matter how small, contact the Mason City Police Department. What do you believe happened to Jodi? Was justice delayed or denied entirely? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to see more stories like this, true crime, unsolved mysteries, and hidden truths, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. This is Confessions and Cold Cases, where some stories never get an ending.